25 years ago, in Minot, North Dakota, a 17-year-old girl left her late-night shift at a local diner and vanished without a trace, leaving her family shattered and the town gripped by fear. Authorities initially suspected she might have run away, but when her silver Civic was never found and no clear evidence surfaced, the investigation quickly stalled. Yet for 2 decades, her parents never gave up hope, clinging to the faint possibility that their daughter was still alive somewhere. Then one day, next-generation DNA technology and an unexpected testimony revealed a critical detail that everyone had overlooked. A detail powerful enough to change the entire case. Before we dive into this shocking story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you like this video, don't forget to hit subscribe. Minot, North Dakota, the night of September 15, 2000. A small town as peaceful as ever. Quiet streets stretched along the Souris River, with sparse streetlights casting faint yellow glows. The early fall air was crisp, wind whistling through the weakly flickering neon signs of the few shops still open late. On the main road, Paradise Diner, a long-standing family restaurant, had just closed for the day. Inside, Kelly Morgan, 17, a high school student and part-time employee, finished her evening shift. She wiped down tables, folded her apron, and said goodbye to her coworkers. The wall clock read 9:45 p.m. when Kelly walked out the door. Over her shoulder was her familiar green backpack, her white diner uniform still carrying the scent of fryer grease, her brown hair tied up high. The last coworker caught a fleeting glimpse of Kelly hurrying toward the dimly lit parking lot, where her silver Honda Civic was usually parked. The lot was empty, except for the faint glow of yellow streetlights and the sound of wind rustling through the trees. That was the last moment anyone saw Kelly. A few miles away, in a suburban wooden house, Kelly's parents waited. Kelly rarely came home late and always texted or called if plans changed. By 11 p.m., worry surged. Her mother called repeatedly, the phone ringing endlessly, with no answer. Her father grabbed a jacket and drove along familiar routes from the student housing area, across the Souris River Bridge, stopping at the gas station near Highway 83. But the streets were silent, with no sign of their daughter. As the clock ticked past midnight, the atmosphere in the Morgan household grew thick with tension. They called a few of Kelly's friends, but no one knew anything. The phone stayed silent, the streets empty, each passing minute stretching endlessly. By 2 a.m., with the last glimmers of hope fading, the family couldn't wait any longer. They picked up the phone and called the Minot police, reporting that their 17-year-old daughter was missing. The call went straight to the Minot Police Department's dispatch, where Sergeant David Harper was on night duty. A 15-year veteran, Harper was used to 911 calls about domestic disputes, bar fights, or drunk driving, but rarely faced a teenager vanishing without a trace. Still, he followed protocol, opening a missing juvenile case file. He recorded every detail provided by Kelly's mother, the time she left her shift at Paradise Diner, the description of her 1992 silver Honda Civic with North Dakota plates, the white diner uniform tinged with grease, the green backpack she carried daily. All details were entered into the system, and an internal alert was sent to patrol units within a 20-mile radius of Minot. Harper asked if Kelly might have stayed over with friends or run away on her own. He jotted down "runaway" as a routine note, as many prior cases involved teens leaving for a few days before returning. But the family's reaction made him pause. Kelly's father, Mr. Morgan, said firmly, "She's never done this. She wouldn't leave without telling us. This isn't Kelly's way." Her mother, choking back tears, added, "She has school, college plans. She's not the rebellious type." Kelly's younger brother chimed in. "She promised to help me with math homework. She never breaks promises." The family's unwavering conviction made Harper realize he couldn't simply label this a runaway case. A small task force was sent to the Morgan home that night. They interviewed each family member, father, mother, brother. They noted the last phone contact, the unanswered calls. Police mapped out the route from Paradise Diner to the house, a 10-minute drive. They called the diner to verify. The manager confirmed Kelly finished her shift at 9:45, and a coworker saw her walk out the back door toward the parking lot. An officer noted, no one saw her leave with anyone else. No signs of discontent or conflict at work. Still, the runaway theory lingered in the Morgan living room like a shadow. Kelly's parents fiercely rejected it, repeating, "She's never stayed out overnight without telling us. She promised to come home to study for a math test. She's responsible." Harper stood in the cramped living room, hearing the clock tick, knowing time was against them. From his investigative experience, he knew every hour could be the line between life and death. At 3:30 a.m., Harper took action. He called the station, requesting an emergency search team and issuing a bolo alert to all patrols. 17-year-old female Kelly Morgan, 5'4", brown hair, wearing Paradise Diner white uniform, green backpack, driving a 1992 silver Honda Civic. Report immediately if spotted. Though the file listed missing juvenile, Harper added a critical note. Family insists victim is reliable, no history of running away. Immediate action needed. In the thick darkness of North Dakota, the search began just after 4 a.m. Patrol cars flashed high beams, sweeping every gap in Minot's suburban streets. Flashlights danced across the pavement, probing roadside grass. An emergency search team was mobilized. With over 24 officers, a K-9 unit rushed in from Bismarck overnight, and a highway patrol helicopter hovering slowly above. The whir of chopper blades echoed over the Souris River, its spotlight sweeping the dark waters. The Morgan family stood silently in their yard, clutching each other as flashlight beams moved along the riverbank, realizing this was no longer just a family worry, but a full-scale operation. On Highway 83, the main road cutting through town southward, officers fanned out, shining lights into dense roadside bushes. A 24-hour gas station was checked. The clerk confirmed no sign of Kelly or her silver Civic since the previous evening. Every alley, every small parking lot was searched. All eyes hunted for the slightest clue, the Civic, the green backpack, anything to trace Kelly's path. But for hours, both the girl and her car remained swallowed by the night, as if they'd never existed. By 5 a.m., the search team followed a dirt road leading to the eastern outskirts. The sky was dark and heavy, fog blurring the ground. A young officer paused, spotting unusual tire tracks etched in the soft earth. He crouched, examining them under his flashlight. The tread pattern didn't match a typical Civic. The tracks were deeper, likely from a larger vehicle, perhaps a pickup or SUV. Harper immediately cordoned off the area, measuring the track width, photographing, and noting GPS coordinates. But challenges emerged. This road was used by farm trucks with old and new tracks overlapping. No one could confirm a connection to Kelly. The evidence was fragile, and without a timestamp, it was just a disjointed puzzle piece. The K-9 unit was brought to the site. A women's athletic shoe, provided by Kelly's family from her bedroom, was used as a scent sample. The dogs lunged forward, noses to the ground. They pulled hard, leading northeast along the Souris River. Officers with flashlights followed, hearts pounding. But after a few hundred meters, the scent faded. The dogs circled, then barked briefly, signaling a dead end. Harper clenched his jaw, ordering the team to fan out and continue searching the riverbank, checking every patch of grass and trail. Still no Civic. From the helicopter, a spotlight pierced the river's surface. The water shimmered silver, flowing quietly through the sleeping town. The pilot reported, no vehicles visible in the water, no metallic reflections. Infrared cameras detected no human heat signatures along the banks. A heavy silence fell over the search team. At the temporary command center in a van, a Minot map was spread out, with Kelly's possible routes marked in red. Harper stood staring, tapping nervously, searching for a gap in the logic. By 6 a.m., Moed, as the first light touched the horizon, the team had swept most areas from Paradise Diner, along Highway 83, and the Saris River. Over 30 miles of roads were searched, but the silver Civic had vanished. Police reported back, "No vehicle found, no signs of a crash or physical evidence." The Morgan family received the update. The mother collapsed in the yard, while the father gripped his hands, face pale. In the riverside house, the last neon glow from the helicopter faded. The overnight search ended with more questions than answers. The strange tire tracks were noted, but their destination was unknown. As dawn broke, Minot awoke, unaware it was about to witness one of the most haunting cases in its history. Dawn on September 16, 2000, draped Minot in a thin fog, with weak sunlight barely breaking the horizon. Volunteer groups joined police, determined to rescue areas untouched by the overnight search. Among them was a group of local college students led by a professor. They followed a dirt path from Highway 83 to the forest edge by the Saris River, where patrol cars had swept their lights but found nothing at dawn. Around 7:20 a.m., a student trailing behind stopped, bent down in the wet grass, and shouted. On the rocky, tire-marked ground, a dark green backpack lay, its strap tangled in the grass as if hastily discarded. The backpack bore a common brand, worn at the edges, but a small guitar sticker on the flap made it unmistakable. It was Kelly's daily backpack. Police immediately secured the scene, instructing volunteers to stay put. Crime scene cameras captured every angle, every crushed blade of grass around the backpack. When an officer carefully unzipped it, the crisp morning air turned stifling. Inside were a few textbooks still smelling of ink, a neatly folded sweater, and a dark brown leather wallet. The wallet was empty, holding only Kelly's student ID and a blurry portrait photo. No cash, no other documents. This immediately sparked a theory that Kelly may have been intercepted, her backpack discarded after someone took what they needed. A forensic team from Fargo was called in. They spread a white tarp, using gloved hands and specialized tweezers to lift the backpack from the ground. A handheld microscope revealed faint fingerprints on the wallet's leather, too smudged for immediate identification, but valuable for storage. Notably, in a small corner of the backpack's lining, technicians found a single long, dark brown hair. Preliminary analysis showed it didn't match Kelly's lighter-toned hair. This was the first clue suggesting another individual's presence at or near the time of Kelly's disappearance. News of the green backpack spread quickly among volunteers. Locals gathered along the dirt road, anxiously watching as the forensic team sealed everything in evidence bags. Kelly's parents were informed. Her mother sobbed into her hands, while her father stood silent, eyes bloodshot, as if burning the backpack's image into his memory. To him, it was no longer an everyday item, but a grim sign that his daughter had been thrust into danger. At the temporary command post on Highway 83, Sergeant Harper received the report and stood still for a long moment. He stared at photos of the backpack and student ID, then wrote boldly in the case file. Evidence suggests foul play. The runaway theory, which had lingered in reports overnight, was immediately crossed out. No teenager would abandon a backpack with an empty wallet, student ID and textbooks, let alone leave a warm sweater in North Dakota's cold climate. As daylight broke, the investigation shifted to external clues. Minot PD investigators fanned out to every shop and gas station along the route from Paradise Diner to Kelly's neighborhood, aiming to reconstruct her path after 9:45 p.m. on September 15, 2000. The last recorded moment she left her shift. Hours after the backpack's discovery, police received their first lead from a middle-aged woman living near the Conoco gas station on Broadway. In her statement, she claimed that around 10 p.m. that night, while walking her dog, she saw a girl in a white diner uniform shirt, hair tied high, hurrying along the sidewalk toward the gas station. She wasn't entirely certain, but when police showed her Kelly's photo, she instantly recognized the face now plastered across local news. That same day, another lead emerged from a long-haul delivery driver. He reported that on a dirt road not far from Highway 83, he noticed a dark blue Ford pickup parked at an angle on the shoulder. Ahead of it, a small silver car was stopped, its headlights still on. The driver didn't stop, but recalled the contrast, the large pickup beside a small sedan, lights casting a scene of a hurried exchange. Though unsure if the sedan was a Honda Civic, the color match immediately caught police attention. At the temporary command post on Highway 83, a map was spread wide, with timestamps marked in red. Sergeant Harper connected the dots. 9:45. Kelly left Paradise Diner, last seen by a coworker exiting the back door. 10 o'clock. A female witness saw a girl matching Kelly's description walking near the Conoco gas station. 10:15. A truck driver saw a blue Ford and a silver sedan parked together on a dirt road. These 3 points formed an initial timeline, creating a critical window for the investigation. Investigators analyzed if Kelly left the diner and walked to the parking lot, but her Civic was never found. It meant she didn't drive home. So what happened? Either she was intercepted at the lot, or her Civic was forced to leave the area afterward. The discarded green backpack strengthened the theory that she didn't vanish voluntarily. Police shifted focus, locating the 1992 silver Honda Civic with North Dakota plates. All patrol stations were alerted to watch for similar vehicles in the area. The bus to Mother Rudd's, no longer vague, now specifying the Civic, may have been near a blue Ford pickup around 10:15 p.m. They also contacted local garages to monitor if anyone brought a silver Civic in for repairs or hid it in storage. In the small Minot PD meeting room, a young officer remarked, "If the driver's account is true, why would a Civic stop on a dirt road with a Ford that night?" Kelly had no reason to meet anyone there. Harper stared at the backpack photo on the screen, his voice low. No meeting, ambushed. The room fell silent. Everyone understood. The Morgan family was updated on these accounts. The father clenched his fists on the table, while the mother trembled, asking repeatedly, Was she scared? Did she call for help? Police didn't answer, only promising to do everything to uncover the truth. But internally, the outlook grew grimmer. Kelly may have faced a stranger in that blue Ford. Right after establishing the timeline with initial accounts, Sergeant Harper and Minot PD investigators focused on one goal: finding Kelly's 1992 silver Honda Civic. They believed locating the car would lead to her. By 9 a.m. on September 16, 2000, the Civic's details were entered into the NCIC system. 1992 Honda Civic, silver North Dakota plates, small guitar decal on rear window corner. The data was sent to all law enforcement agencies in the state and neighboring ones. Highway patrol officers were specifically reminded, as the Civic could have left Minot overnight. Police also checked the limited surveillance systems of 2000. At the Conoco gas station, where the witness claimed to have seen a girl matching Kelly's description, they retrieved a VHS tape from the manager's office, but reviewing it showed only blurry figures moving in and out, the footage shaky with flickering neon lights. The frames were too unclear to confirm anyone. If the silver Civic passed through, it appeared only as a fleeting bright blur, its license plate unreadable. At ATMs around Broadway, police requested bank surveillance tapes, but 2000 technology offered narrow-angle, low-quality footage with short-term storage. Some tapes were already overwritten. The remaining ones showed no Civic between 9:45 and 11 p.m. Harper sat in a dim room, eyes strained from watching grainy, noisy footage, finding nothing. The nearby highway toll booth was also checked. But in 2000 North Dakota, automated license plate cameras weren't widely used. Toll logs only recorded vehicle counts, not images. Handwritten night shift notes vaguely listed 2 small cars, 1 truck. No Civic, no blue Ford, nothing useful. Detectives turned to another angle, checking scrapyards and small garages in the area. They thought if the perpetrator hid evidence, they might have taken the Civic for repairs or dismantling. But yard owners shook their heads. Silver Civics were common, with dozens of similar models across the state. No one recalled a specific one brought in from the night of September 15th to 16. No records, no receipts. Every lead was a dead end. In the following days, police organized searches of empty lots, forests along the Souris River, even small lakes around Minot. They feared the Civic might have been pushed into water to erase evidence. Volunteer divers went down, dragging cables to scan muddy lake beds. But hours yielded only rusted tractor frames, no sedans. Minot sank into obsession. Locals whispered, "How could a car vanish completely in just hours?" A local newspaper headline read, "Silver Honda Civic vanishes. Kelly Morgan case grows mysterious." The article emphasized, a 17-year-old girl and her car dissolved into thin air, with no cameras or witnesses pinpointing her final journey. Harper sat in his office, afternoon light streaming through the window onto towering case files. He wrote a heavy note. Vehicle gone like it never existed. This was no longer a runaway or simple missing person case. It was a crime with human hands erasing the tracks. Each hour dimmed the hope of finding Kelly safe. 7 days later, Minot PD had scoured every road and empty lot with no trace of the silver Civic. The investigation room's air felt drained. The timeline board frozen with red-marked hours, but no progress. Facing a stalemate, Harper called an urgent meeting, demanding every investigator propose viable theories. 3 scenarios emerged, dominating discussions: runaway, Kelly left voluntarily; accident, the Civic crashed and was hidden; abduction, the darkest possibility. The runaway theory had initial support from some officers. At 17, school, family, or personal pressures could have driven Kelly to leave Minot. But interviews with close friends, teachers at Minot High, and co-workers at Paradise Diner all aligned. Kelly showed no signs of planning to leave. She talked about her SATs, scheduled band practice, and took shifts for the next week. Her math teacher said she submitted homework regularly and asked about college scholarships. Her best friend confirmed a movie plan for the weekend. No one believed she was plotting to disappear. The accident theory was also raised. Could the Civic have veered off and sunk in a deep river or ravine? But dozens of miles were patrolled. Divers searched the Souris River and nearby lakes. No wreckage or crash marks were found, weakening this idea. That left abduction. It hinged on the discarded backpack, the emptied wallet, and the truck driver's account of a blue Ford parked by a silver sedan at 10:15. This made Harper unable to dismiss the possibility that Kelly was approached, restrained, and taken elsewhere by a stranger. But with no direct witnesses, no cameras, and no evidence beyond the backpack, police couldn't prove anything. It was all speculation. In the days that followed, detectives spent hours in a neon-lit meeting room, case files growing thicker but yielding no new data. Harper noted, "Every theory has holes. We can't rule out any scenario, nor confirm anything." Local media coverage dwindled. The community's initial fervor, nights with dozens searching the riverbanks, faded. The Morgan family didn't give up, but grief exhausted them. The mother posted missing flyers everywhere, though passers-by grew indifferent. The father sat silently in the empty garage, staring where the Civic once parked. Kelly's brother kept his math books on the table, waiting for her to explain, knowing she never would. The next month passed without new leads. In Minot PD's log, Kelly Morgan's case shifted from active search to open but inactive, still open, but no daily resources deployed. Unanswered questions became a burden. Where did Kelly go in the short window after leaving the diner by 10:15? How did the silver Civic vanish? Who was in the blue Ford nearby? Why did a teen with no criminal record or personal issues disappear without a trace? The case grew cold, sinking into the list of hundreds of unsolved missing persons cases in the Midwest. By 2001, Kelly's file was like other cold cases. A thick folder of reports, crime scene photos, and witness statements packed into a cardboard box labeled open, inactive, and shelved. Sergeant David Harper, who doggedly followed every lead since September 15, 2000, occasionally reopened the file, adding notes. But he knew a small department like Minot's lacked resources for a long-term probe without new evidence. In 2004, Harper retired after over 20 years in service. Before handing over, he left a brief note on the file. Vehicle not found, no solid leads. If possible, revisit Blue Ford and nearby area. Throughout the first decade after the disappearance, the Morgan family tirelessly sent tips to the police. The mother called monthly, pleading for the case to be revisited. The father drove across the state, pasting faded posters at rest stops, gas stations, and roadside markets. Kelly's younger brother grew up haunted by her absence, balancing college while maintaining a small website, findkelly.org, to solicit information. But all their efforts sank into a void. Every tip sent was ruled out after days of verification. Some false leads caused deep pain. In 2003, a woman in Montana called, claiming she'd met a girl named Kelly, working at a highway diner. Local police checked, but it was an entirely different girl, unrelated. In 2007, a man in Minneapolis insisted he saw Kelly at the Mall of America. The family rushed 10 hours to the city, only to hear the cold confirmation: identity doesn't match. Such moments became fresh cuts, reopening their wounds. In the 2010 essays, as social media became a common tool, the Morgans tried it too. A Facebook page, Bring Kelly Home, was created, sharing hundreds of old photos and pleading for community help. Some posts went viral, but the results were vague tips. Saw a girl like Kelly in Colorado Springs. Someone resembling Kelly was with a tour group in Canada. None had solid evidence. Each spark of hope pushed the family back to square one. Meanwhile, the Minot Police Department faced dozens of new cases: drugs, domestic violence, traffic accidents. Limited staff pushed Kelly's case lower on the priority list. The thin file of a missing teen was buried under thicker, more urgent reports. Young officers joining after 2010 only knew Kelly Morgan's name from a faded poster on the station's bulletin board. Yet for the Morgan family, time couldn't erase the void. The mother kept Kelly's room untouched, books still stacked on the desk, a checkered blanket folded at the bed's end. Each birthday they lit candles, placed a small cake in the living room, and prayed silently. The father quietly wrote letters to his daughter, never sent, stuffing them in a desk drawer. Kelly's brother, now an engineer, blamed himself. If I'd stayed up later that night, if I'd called her one last time. For 15 years, Kelly Morgan's case was an open wound for her family and a shadow over Minot, a town where a teen and her silver Civic could vanish without a trace. But in 2016, a quiet change emerged. North Dakota established the Cold Case Unit, dedicated to reviewing long-dormant files. On the new team's desk, among dozens of thick folders, sat a yellowed cardboard box labeled Morgan, Kelly, Missing Juvenile, 2000. In the cold basement storage of the Minot Police Department, Kelly Morgan's case box sat untouched for over 15 years. Inside, alongside yellowed reports and crime scene photos, was a clear plastic evidence bag holding 3 key items: the green backpack, the strange hair found in its lining, and small cards labeled latent prints, faint fingerprints lifted from the leather wallet. In 2000, the forensic technology of a small North Dakota department could do little beyond preservation. DNA analysis then was slow, effective only with clear blood or fluid samples. A rootless hair, smudged fingerprints, these were beyond their reach. So the evidence was stored, as if waiting for a generation with the tools to unlock it. In 2016, when the Cold Case Unit was formed, Kelly's file was among the first pulled from the shelf. Young investigators, armed with far-advanced forensic technology, opened each evidence bag. They checked to ensure no errors in the chain of custody. The old seals still bore Sergeant Harper's signature, long retired, a silent witness from the past. After verification, they sent all samples to the state's modern DNA lab, equipped with new STR analysis systems and touch DNA technology capable of extracting traces from minimal contact. The process took weeks. The backpack was vacuum sealed, its inner fabric scanned for epithelial cells. The dark brown hair, distinct from Kelly's lighter tone, was examined under an electron microscope for mitochondrial DNA. The latent prints cards were cleaned, digitized, and run through new software, replacing the manual comparisons of the 2000s. No one knew if these aged samples held value after so long, but the cold case team knew. This was the only hope to revive the case. One November morning in 2016, the lab's preliminary report arrived. The bold text on the first page silenced the investigators. Male DNA profile detected, not matching victim. The male DNA, extracted from the hair and cells in the backpack, wasn't Kelly's. This was no longer guesswork. It was scientific proof of direct contact between Kelly and an unknown man during her disappearance. The meeting room crackled with tension. Veteran detectives exchanged knowing glances. The runaway theory was now fully debunked. A teen doesn't discard her backpack, leave an empty wallet, and carry a stranger's DNA. The case's focus shifted from Kelly vanished to who was the man in Kelly's backpack. When the forensic report from North Dakota's state lab arrived in late 2016, the bold text on the first page silenced everyone in the Minot PD meeting room. Male DNA profile detected, not matching victim. After 16 years of darkness, Kelly Morgan's case finally had clear evidence. Immediately, the department escalated the case to a statewide federal level, partnering with the North Dakota Bureau of Criminal Investigation, BCI. An interagency meeting was held in Bismarck, where seasoned BCI agents joined young cold case unit detectives, spreading out old files and the new DNA report, connecting every possibility. The first step was obvious: enter the DNA profile into CODIS, the FBI's national database, storing millions of genetic profiles from convicted criminals and suspects. Technicians compressed the male DNA from the hair and backpack cells, sending it securely to CODIS headquarters. The team waited, hoping for a name, a file number. Days later, the result came back: cold, no match. Silence gripped the room. Many recalled past disappointments, when every lead ended in nothing. But this time, they refused to stop. BCI suggested a new approach: genealogical DNA, which had gained fame with the Golden State Killer case in California. Instead of waiting for a direct CODIS match, this method analyzed full genetic data to find distant relatives in open databases like GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA. From there, genealogists built family trees, narrowing down suspects. It was a challenging path, costly, time-consuming, with no guarantees. But for Kelly's case, a teen disappearance haunting the community for over a decade, every hope was worth pursuing. The decision was signed on the spot. The strange hair and backpack cells would undergo full genome sequencing, then be sent to a partnered Texas lab specializing in genealogical DNA. Technicians in white hazmat suits and gloves carefully opened the sealed bag with Harper's old signature, photographing each step to preserve the chain of custody. The preparation took weeks, every move documented to maintain evidence integrity. Meanwhile, news of Kelly Morgan case reopened with DNA evidence hit the media. The Minot Daily News ran it on the front page, calling it a rare light after 16 years. Local TV replayed old footage: Kelly's face in her Paradise Diner uniform, the dirt road where the green backpack was found, her mother's tearful eyes. Minot residents, many who had forgotten or deemed the case a permanent mystery, began buzzing again. Online, interest exploded. A web sleuth member revived the 2008 thread, Kelly Morgan. Minot ND 2000 missing teen. Within days, hundreds of comments poured in, with users analyzing the timeline and comparing it to other cases. On Reddit's r// Unresolved Mysteries, a post titled DNA Profile in Kelly Morgan Case racked up thousands of upvotes. Users discussed genealogical DNA's potential to identify a suspect, some even volunteering to upload their own DNA to GEDmatch to help in a small way. The support brought the Morgan family to tears. Finally, Kelly wasn't forgotten. At Minot PD, The cold case lieutenant noted in a report, public attention is a double-edged sword, pressure and motivation. But this time, we're not alone. The investigative team agreed, though genealogical DNA results could take months, they had entered a new phase. After 16 years, Kelly Morgan had been given a voice again, and it was resounding across America. As news of the Kelly Morgan case reopening with DNA evidence spread across North Dakota media, the internet became a place where the story came alive. On web sleuths, a thread dormant since 2008 roared back to life. A user named Dakota Watcher reposted the case timeline, 9:45 p.m. Kelly left Paradise Diner, 10 o'clock. A witness reported seeing her walking near the Conoco gas station, 10:15. A long-haul driver saw a blue Ford parked beside a silver sedan. Facts once buried in dust were laid bare, and dozens of members joined the discussion. Some analyzed the timeline's logic, others compared it to similar Midwest cold cases. One member linked it to the 1979 Tammy Jo Alexander case in New York, noting chilling parallels: a teen vanished, no car found, a family left waiting until DNA spoke. Concurrently, on Reddit's Unresolved Mysteries, a post titled DNA Profile in Kelly Morgan Case, Could Genealogy Finally Solve It? Shot to the top, earning thousands of upvotes. Users shared old photos of Kelly in her diner uniform, maps of her route home, and the image of the green backpack found roadside. Lengthy comments dissected theories. Some insisted the blue Ford belonged to a local, others speculated the Civic was hidden in an abandoned barn. Many meticulously cross-referenced details with satellite maps, even reviewing 2,000 traffic reports. The fervor was both amateur and a testament to an unquenched thirst for justice. Shockingly, amid this online surge, a witness silent for 16 years stepped forward. In a small town miles from Minot, a man's memory stirred as he read the timeline online. On the night of September 15, 2000, after a late shift, he glimpsed a girl standing by a silver Civic, while a dark blue Ford idled nearby. The image had flashed by, but it haunted him for years. Buried by fear his vague memory might muddy the investigation. This time, he chose to speak. The next morning, the middle-aged man walked into the Minot Police Department in a worn wool coat, his salt and pepper hair disheveled from sleeplessness. He hesitated, requiring the desk officer to ask multiple times, "What do you want to report?" Finally, he uttered a sentence that silenced the room. "I think I saw something the night Kelly Morgan disappeared." After 16 years, a witness had walked in. He was ushered into a small interrogation room. A recorder sat ready on the table, beside the thick Morgan, Kelly, 2000 file. Two cold case investigators, new to the case, sat across from him. They started gently, urging him to recount everything from memory. The man took a deep breath, his trembling hands clasped. "That night, around 10:15, I was driving home from a late shift at the factory. That dirt road was empty, just faint lights from Highway 83 in the distance. I saw a silver sedan pulled to the shoulder. Behind it was a dark blue Ford pickup. What stuck with me was the left taillight on the Ford. It was cracked, the red light spilling out like a bleeding wound." He paused, his voice lowering. "I saw a girl standing by the Civic. She wore a light-colored shirt, petite frame. A tall man stepped out of the Ford, in a dark jacket. I didn't stop, thinking they knew each other, maybe fixing a car. I drove on, glancing for just seconds. But when I heard Kelly was missing, that scene clung to me. I stayed silent too long, afraid I'd misremembered. Afraid police would dismiss me. But now I know I have to speak." The investigators absorbed every detail. One noted time approximately 10:15, location near the old turnoff to the forest edge. Blue Ford details. Older model, cracked taillight. Another showed him photos of 1980s, 1990s pickups. He pointed instantly, close to this Ford F-150. The certainty in his eyes ruled out vague recollection. That afternoon, police recreated the scene. A silver Civic and an older Ford pickup were brought to the exact dirt road. As dusk fell, they turned on the taillights, observing the light on the road. Indeed, a cracked bulb cast a jagged red glow on the gravel, a striking image. The witness stood by, nodding repeatedly. Exactly like that. I could never forget. Simultaneously, Minot PD and North Dakota BCI requested the Transportation Department to pull all Ford pickup registrations in Ward County and adjacent areas from 1999-2001. The list spanned nearly 200 names. Investigators split the task, focusing on vehicles with reported taillight repairs sold after September 2000 or owned by those with criminal records. The grueling work took weeks, but precision paid off. A report from a small Minot garage stood out. Ford F-150. Dark blue, left taillight replaced. 10/2000s. Owner, Raymond Schultz. The name leaped off the data. The repair was weeks after Kelly's disappearance. Investigators circled it in red, pinning it to the timeline beside 1015. Blue Ford by Civic. The lead was reported to command, the cold case supervisor said slowly. Out of hundreds of owners, one got a taillight fixed right after the disappearance. And by chance, the model, color, and damaged light matched the witness. This isn't coincidence. It's a lead. News of the new witness reached the Morgans. The mother sat silently in the living room, clutching Kelly's photo. The father, voice hoarse, said, "If this is true, she didn't vanish randomly. She was forced." The words shattered their faint hope that Kelly had simply left. For the first time in 16 years, the truth crystallized that night. Kelly's Civic was stopped by someone in a blue Ford. In the Minot PD meeting room, tension was palpable. On the whiteboard, Raymond Schultz's name stood out in red. A young officer glanced at colleagues, saying softly, "After all these years, we finally have a real person to investigate." The silence that followed was heavy but resolute. They knew the Kelly Morgan case would no longer stall. After Raymond Schultz's name emerged as the owner of the old Ford F-150, with a taillight replaced shortly after Kelly's disappearance, the cold case team knew they were closer than ever. But a witness's account and a repair invoice weren't enough for court. They needed something irrefutable. The key lay in Kelly's green backpack, sealed for 16 years, still holding the unidentified male DNA. In the winter of 2016, that DNA was sent to Othram, a renowned Texas lab specializing in hopeless cases. Unlike 2000's technology, Othram could process degraded, minimal samples, even from a few cells. Technicians in white suits opened the sealed bag bearing Harper's signature, photographing to ensure chain of custody. They performed whole genome sequencing to reconstruct millions of genetic markers. The data was then cross-referenced with open databases like DEDmatch and Family Tree DNA, where millions voluntarily upload DNA for genealogical research. In an internal report, a technician wrote, "The goal isn't a direct suspect match, but to find distant relatives. From there, build a family tree, narrowing down until an individual emerges." This was the technology that cracked high-profile cases like the Golden State Killer. The analysis took months. Initial data only pointed to distant relatives in other states, but it was enough to start a genealogical branch. Othram's genealogists drew a chart, names linked by dozens of arrows, spanning from the early 20th century to the present. One family branch repeatedly appeared around Minot, North Dakota, the Schultzes. When the report reached Minot PD, the investigators sat in stunned silence. They stared at a large printed family tree, a complex web, but one name stood out, Raymond Schultz. He was born and raised in Minot, living less than 2 miles from Paradise Diner, where Kelly worked. His usual work route crossed the dirt road where the witness saw the Civic stopped. Crucially, Schultz owned the dark blue Ford F-150, with a reported left taillight repair in October 2000, weeks after Kelly vanished. The cascade of coincidences thickened the room's air. A young investigator blurted, "He was there from the start." The lead investigator responded, voice low. Yes, but now we have science backing us. This isn't just a hunch. Still, the team remained cautious. Schultz, in his 50s, was an electrical engineer, living with his wife in a tidy suburban home. Neighbors described him as quiet, helpful with electrical fixes, occasionally joining them to hunt deer. To the community, he was ordinary. That normalcy heightened the danger predators often hide in plain sight. The Morgans were privately briefed. Hearing Schultz's name, the mother sat frozen for minutes before saying, "I've seen him around town. We never thought he could be linked to Kelly." The father's hands clenched white. To them, the suspect wasn't a distant shadow, but someone living in their community for 16 years. Though police kept details under wraps, news of progress leaked. On Reddit and web sleuths, users speculated about a Minot family tied to the genealogical DNA report. Though no one was certain, many guessed the Schultzes were involved. Posts spread, with online communities debating, hopeful yet fearful. "If this is the suspect, he's lived freely among us all these years," one user wrote. For investigators, the pressure mounted. They knew if word spread too soon, Schultz might grow wary or destroy remaining evidence. So, the next plan was drawn in silence: surveil Schultz, collect DNA from items he discarded, and gather enough evidence for an arrest warrant. In the report sent to the BCI, the lead investigator wrote, "Genealogical DNA has pointed to the Schultz family, living right in Minot. Geographic ties, vehicle history, and witness timeline all converge on Raymond Schultz. He is currently the primary suspect." When the words Raymond Schultz, primary suspect, were circled in red on the timeline board in the meeting room, the team fell silent for a few seconds. After 16 years, the darkness surrounding Kelly Morgan's case was finally beginning to crack. The name Raymond Schultz, emerging from the list of owners of older model blue Ford F-150s, froze the atmosphere in the Minot PD meeting room. Veteran investigators exchanged glances, as Schultz was no stranger. He was a longtime Minot resident, an electrical engineer who had worked nearly 3 decades for the state utility company. On the surface, Schultz projected the image of a model citizen, married, living in a tidy suburban home, leaving for work promptly each morning, returning reliably in the evening, occasionally attending local church services. Neighbors described him as a quiet, kind man, always willing to fix wiring or lend tools. In a small town like Minot, that image earned absolute trust. But the file unearthed by the cold case team told a different story. In 1995, Schultz had been accused by a female coworker of harassment during a night shift at a power station. The matter was quickly dropped, leaving only faint notes in his personnel file. No charges, no court. 3 years later, in 1998, a college student renting a room near Schultz's neighborhood reported to police that a middle-aged man repeatedly followed her slowly in his car as she walked home at night. Police noted it, but could do little without evidence. These isolated incidents, once dismissed as minor now, alongside Kelly Morgan's case, became chilling puzzle pieces. To be certain, Minot PD and BCI initiated covert surveillance. An unmarked pickup took turns parking at the end of Schultz's street. They logged his movements, leaving home at 6 a.m. in a newer GMC Sierra, returning at 5 p.m. Weekends often driving to the forest edge, near Lake Sakakawea, a site searched in 2000 for Kelly's Civic. Reading this, the lead investigator exclaimed, "We were standing right near him and didn't know." A shiver ran through the room. During surveillance, they noticed Schultz's extreme secrecy. He never invited neighbors into his garage or shed, both secured with double locks. A male neighbor said, "Ray lives like clockwork, but it's odd. He keeps his house like a fortress. No one's been inside." Another woman recalled that in September 2000, Schultz vanished for a few days, telling his wife he was hunting deer out of town. No one thought twice then, but now it aligned with the night Kelly disappeared. The team quietly checked vehicle records. As confirmed, Schultz's 1988 blue Ford F-150 had its left taillight repaired in October 2000 at a small suburban garage. The repair receipt was found in storage. This matched eerily with the new witness's account. Piece by piece, the puzzle fit. Still, investigators knew it was all circumstantial. Schultz could deny it, blame coincidence. To make him a true suspect, they needed undeniable evidence, direct DNA to match the unknown male sample from Kelly's backpack. A tense meeting was held at BCI headquarters. Detectives, forensic technicians, and prosecutors sat around the table. The team leader concluded, "We have the witness vehicle records, genealogical DNA pointing to the Schultzes. But it's not enough. We need direct DNA from Raymond Schultz. Only that will close the net." The room went silent. They knew the next step was risky, collecting a sample Schultz unknowingly left behind. A beer can, cigarette butt, or half-used coffee cup. If he grew suspicious, the entire investigation could collapse. Consensus was reached. After nearly 2 decades of dead ends, this was their only shot. An investigator whispered firmly, "It's time to act. Now or never." After agreeing on the strategy, the cold case team gathered around a long table, mapping out every step for the covert DNA collection from Raymond Schultz. No mistakes could be made, as any hint of suspicion could lead him to destroy evidence or flee. The plan had 3 prongs: monitor daily routines, seize an opportunity to collect personal items, and ensure forensic procedures were airtight. For days, a dedicated team tracked Schultz from a safe distance. They noted his rigid schedule, leaving home at 6 a.m. in a silver-gray GMC Sierra. Returning at 5 p.m. evenings, he often stopped at a small bar off Highway 2, drinking a few beers, smoking cigarettes, then quietly heading home. The investigators decided this was the best window. On the 3rd day, Schultz appeared at his usual bar. He sat at the far end of the counter, ordered 2 Budweisers, and stared at the TV screen on the wall. Undercover investigators, posing as patrons, sat nearby, chatting casually. When Schultz finished, he set down his can, stubbed out his cigarette, and left. Seconds later, an FBI agent, working with BCI, approached, asking the bartender to preserve the can and cigarette butt. Both were sealed in evidence bags, under the dim yellow lights. They didn't stop there, wary of Schultz claiming contaminated samples. Days later, at Roosevelt Park on a weekend afternoon, Schultz sat on a bench, sipped another beer, and tossed the can into a public trash bin. An investigator, disguised as a jogger, retrieved it, sealing it in an evidence bag, the entire action recorded by a hidden camera. For good measure, they collected a discarded coffee cup from a gas station where Schultz stopped one early morning. 3 independent samples, from 3 sources, were transported to BCI's DNA lab in Bismarck in a refrigerated container. The wait for results was agonizing. Investigators paced the halls, suppressing nervous anticipation. They were used to disappointment, to insufficient evidence, to cases shelved again. But this felt different. They knew they held a thread leading to the final answer. 3 days later, the lab director personally called the lead investigator. "We've completed the analysis," he said, his voice steady but trembling with emotion. An emergency meeting was called. Everyone stared at the printed report. The numbers were clear: match 99.9999%. DNA from Schultz's beer can and cigarette matched the unknown male DNA found in Kelly's backpack the night she vanished. The room fell silent for seconds. A young investigator clenched a fist, exclaiming, "We've got him." Seasoned faces, hardened by dozens of cases, couldn't hide their emotions. Some looked down, closing their eyes, picturing Kelly, the 17-year-old, robbed of her future in that cold 2000 autumn night. The lead investigator tapped the table, voice firm. "For years, we've been stuck in theories, in doubts. Now it's not a theory, it's undeniable truth. Schultz left his mark on Kelly's backpack. He won't escape." A prosecutor present immediately began drafting an arrest warrant application. Judicial approval was needed, but with direct DNA, witness testimony, and vehicle repair records, it was almost certain. The meeting room's tension turned to resolute energy. An investigator whispered, "He's lived freely, drinking beer, hunting, watching TV for nearly 2 decades, while Kelly's family endured pain every day. Now justice is knocking." Hook to Part 16. With the DNA match confirmed, Minot police and BCI had the legal grounds to request Raymond Schultz's arrest, the biggest breakthrough in the Kelly Morgan case since the night she vanished. Right after the DNA results were confirmed, Minot police and BCI North Dakota planned a covert arrest. To avoid alarming the neighborhood, they invited Raymond Schultz to the station under the guise of assisting with an old vehicle-related case. Schultz agreed, curious but seemingly unconcerned. He walked into the interrogation room calmly, wearing a checkered shirt, holding a coffee cup from his usual spot. He sat, arms crossed, eyes scanning the 2 investigators across from him. The questioning began routinely. Where was he living in 2000? Did he recall anything about September 15th? Did he drive near Highway 83 then? Schultz answered evenly. Voice steady. He claimed he didn't know Kelly Morgan, had never heard her name, and if he was on Highway 83, it was just his usual route for hunting or work. He even grew annoyed. Why dig up something from nearly 20 years ago? I'm not involved. The lead investigator paused, then placed a thick file on the table. The top page was the DNA report, bold text reading, "Match 99.9999%. Mr. Schultz," the officer said, "your DNA was found in Kelly Morgan's backpack the night she disappeared. How do you explain this?" For the first time, Schultz faltered. His fingers tapped lightly on the table, his eyes flickering. But he forced a faint laugh. "DNA? Are you sure it's not a mix-up? Some backpack after all these years could be anyone's." The second investigator slid another file toward him. Cell tower data from 2000. Though less precise than today, it showed Schultz's phone pinged near the exact spot a witness saw the Civic stopped. The DNA and location data hit like twin hammers, shattering Schultz's confidence. He swallowed hard, staring at the file, his shoulders slumping slightly. Yet when pressed further, Schultz built a wall of denial. He repeated he never met Kelly, didn't recall that night, and if his phone was there, it was coincidence from his regular drives. "I don't know what you're trying to pin on me," he said, voice tightening, "but I didn't kill anyone." The interrogation stretched for hours. Each new detail, from the witness describing the Ford F-150 with a cracked taillight to the October 2000 repair receipt, prompted the same reaction, brief unease, then quick denial. His eyes grew bloodshot, hands clenched, veins bulging on his neck. The room pulsed with suffocating tension. As night fell outside, the lead investigator stood, gathered the files, and ended the session. "You have the right to remain silent, Schultz, but DNA doesn't lie, and we're not stopping." Schultz stared after them, face frozen, but mouth twitching slightly, as if realizing the net was tightening. The next morning, based on the DNA and surveillance results, the prosecutor signed the arrest warrant application. The judge approved it almost immediately. After 16 years of dead ends, the Kelly Morgan case reached a historic turning point. The first suspect was about to be arrested, backed not by theories, but by clear scientific evidence. Early on a mid-November 2020 morning, as Minot lay under winter's chill, the quiet street where the Schultzes lived awoke to flashing police lights. It was 5:30 a.m. Neighbors heard tires screech on the frost-covered road, then saw figures in tactical vests rush across the lawn. Inside the small beige brick house, lights snapped on, Schultz's silhouette staggering behind the curtains. "Raymond Schultz, North Dakota Police. Open the door now," the lead investigator's voice boomed through a megaphone, shattering the neighborhood's silence. Seconds later, the door swung open. Schultz, in sweatpants and an old sweater, stood frozen. His face mixed shock and dread, as if he knew his final days of normalcy were over. 2 officers moved in, cuffing Schultz while others secured the house. His wife, Linda Schultz, screamed in panic, demanding to know what was happening. A female officer calmly explained, It was an official arrest warrant tied to Kelly Morgan's 2000 disappearance. The name stunned her. That was 20 years ago? She stammered, eyes wide with horror. Schultz didn't resist, head bowed. As he was led to the patrol car, he glanced at neighbors peeking out, his look a mix of confusion and anger. He knew the news would spread through town before sunrise. And it did. Hours later, local papers blared headlines. Cold Case 2000 Minot man arrested for connection to Kelly Morgan disappearance. The news stunned Minot. To many, Schultz was a familiar face. Utility engineer, church member, the man who shoveled neighbors' snow. They couldn't believe he was linked to a case that haunted the community for 2 decades. Social media erupted. Can't believe Ray's involved. I drank with him at the bar. Unbelievable. If true, we lived next to a kidnapper for 20 years. The Morgan family, upon hearing the news, broke down in tears of relief. Kelly's mother, Margaret, choked up before cameras. We've waited 20 years for this day. Nothing can bring Kelly back, but at least justice is finally knocking. Her words aired across the state, moving many to tears. Meanwhile, Schultz was taken to a holding cell at BCI headquarters. Investigators wasted no time, scheduling a second interrogation with all evidence, DNA included, in hand. Everyone knew the moment ahead was pivotal. Either Schultz would confess, or he'd deny to the end. But with an official arrest warrant, things had changed. The legal net had tightened, with no way out. In Minot, tension hung thick. Locals buzzed from Main Street cafes to the grocery store. A case thought forever lost had roared back, exposing truth in the heart of their small community. Many wondered what other secrets lay beneath time's thick ice. At BCI's meeting room, investigators prepped for the critical interrogation. They spread out the file, pinned the detailed timeline, and arranged evidence: backpack DNA, phone data, Ford F-150 taillight receipt, new witness testimony. The once scattered pieces now formed a clear picture. If Schultz spoke, it would be complete. The interrogation room door closed with a heavy thud. Raymond Schultz sat across from 2 seasoned BCI investigators, cuffs off but red marks lingering on his wrists. Before him lay a thick file: crime scene photos, witness statements, DNA comparisons. No more soft questions like last time. Today, police went straight to the point. The lead investigator opened the file, placing a photo of Kelly Morgan before Schultz, a 17-year-old, with a youthful smile, Paradise Diner uniform, and bright blue eyes. "Mr. Schultz, we asked you before. You denied knowing Kelly, but your DNA is on her backpack. Your phone pinged near Highway 83 on September 15th. 2000. A witness saw a blue Ford F-150 with a cracked taillight just like yours. How many coincidences make it true?" Schultz smirked, trying to stay calm. "I don't know that girl. You're building a story from scraps after 20 years. But his voice lacked conviction. The second investigator slid forward the October 2000 repair receipt and witness statement detailing the cracked taillight. "Explain this, Schultz. Why was your truck at the spot Kelly vanished? Why fix the taillight weeks later?" The room's air grew thick. Schultz stared down, sweat beading on his forehead. This time, police gave no room to deflect. They presented the genealogical DNA analysis, proving the unknown DNA from Kelly's backpack matched Schultz's family in Minot. "This isn't a mistake. This is your bloodline. Only you can explain why Kelly disappeared." Schultz began to tremble. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, hands covering his face. His breathing grew heavy, throat rasping. The lead investigator softened his tone. "Ray, it's been 20 years. Kelly's family deserves the truth. Her mother has waited every day. How long will you stay silent?" The silence stretched endlessly. Then Schultz shook his head, voice hoarse. "I didn't mean to kill her. I just wanted to scare her." The investigators exchanged glances, knowing the final wall had cracked. Schultz began to speak. Each word dragged from his chest. He confessed that on September 15th, 2000, driving his Ford F-150 on a dirt road near Highway 83, he saw Kelly walking alone after her shift. I stopped, said a few words, told her to get in the truck. She refused. I got angry, forced her in. Schultz said he drove her to a remote hunting cabin he used in the fall, in the pine forest near Lake Sakakawea, about 40 miles from Minot. For days, he kept Kelly there, hands bound with nylon rope, ordering her to stay quiet. She cried, begged to go home. I panicked. I knew it couldn't end. Then one night, I strangled her. I didn't mean to, but I did. The confession froze the room. Schultz shook, hands gripping each other. He admitted putting Kelly's body in a sack, driving it in his truck, and burying it under dirt and rocks near the forest by Lake Sakakawea. To deter animals, he poured cement and debris over it. I thought no one would find her. I thought time would bury it all. The second investigator took notes, while the others stared at Schultz. Do you know for 20 years, Kelly's family lived in hell? You let them believe she might still be out there. Schultz didn't respond, head bowed, shoulders shaking under 2 decades' weight. Police had him mark the exact location on a map. Schultz slowly pointed to a forest south of Lake Sakakawea, a trail leading to a clearing. There, he whispered, about 200 meters off the main road. You'll see an old cement patch. She's underneath. The investigators ended the session. The confession was recorded, signed, and witnessed legally. An emergency order was issued that night for an excavation team. In the hallway, the lead investigator said softly but firmly, "After 20 years, Kelly is finally coming home." Following Raymond Schultz's confession, a BCI North Dakota forensic team was urgently deployed to the Lake Sakakawea area. That night, trucks carrying excavation gear, field tents, and dozens of forensic personnel rolled down a desolate dirt road. Cold wind howled through the pines, headlights sweeping the forest edge in eerie streaks. No one spoke much, all aware they were approaching a moment that could end 20 years of torment. The spot Schultz marked was a clearing, 200 meters off a trail, rarely visited. On arrival, the team found a thin cement slab covered in decayed leaves and green moss, untouched for years. The forensic leader signaled, and technicians cordoned the area with yellow tape, setting up halogen lights. Cameras and forensic recorders captured every detail for the case file. Drills and shovels broke the night silence. The brittle, cracked cement shattered into chunks. Beneath was hard, damp earth, sharp with a musty smell. Technicians took turns with smaller tools, carefully sifting to avoid damaging evidence. Nearly 2 hours passed when a low shout rang out. "Something here." All eyes turned. In the pit, a small bone fragment emerged. Time seemed to stop. The excavation grew more intense. Within an hour, more scattered bone fragments appeared. Then an entire skeletal structure took shape. Beside the bones were rotted fabric scraps, faded green but with enough stitching to suggest remnants of Kelly's Paradise Diner uniform, worn the night she vanished. An old rope, hardened and fused to wrist bones, was also found. The details sank the mood in the forensic tent. Everyone understood what the young girl endured before her end. Each item was numbered, photographed, and placed in separate evidence bags. When the full skeleton was lifted, the team paused for a moment of silence. 20 years ago, Kelly Morgan left her shift, dreaming of college, then disappeared. Today, her remains were finally found. The remains were taken to the Bismarck coroner's office. Though time had decayed most soft tissue, teeth and bones preserved DNA. A sample was compared to Margaret Morgan's DNA, stored from 2001. Results returned in under 48 hours, a complete match. There was no doubt the remains under the cold cement were Kelly Morgan's. A press conference announced the news. The lead investigator stood before dozens of reporters, voice steady but grave. "We have located Kelly Morgan's remains at the site indicated by suspect Raymond Schultz. DNA confirms her identity. After 2 decades, Kelly is finally returned to her family." Camera shutters snapped as Margaret Kelly's mother, sobbed in the front row. Many in Minot, watching live on local TV, fell silent, struck by the news they'd long awaited. In the lab, the accompanying evidence was meticulously analyzed. The tattered clothing scraps confirmed they were from a Paradise Diner uniform, with faint stitching still bearing the restaurant's logo. The rope contained DNA traces and fibers matching those found in the backpack. Together, they painted a complete picture. Kelly had been abducted, held captive, murdered, and buried in this remote spot. For the family, the moment was both agonizing and comforting. They could finally bring Kelly home, laying her to rest in the local cemetery instead of leaving her as a name on faded missing posters. Margaret's words at the press conference seared into everyone's minds. "At least my daughter is no longer lost out there. She's with us now." On June 14, 2021, the Ward County Courthouse opened the trial of Raymond Schultz, the prime suspect in the disappearance and murder of Kelly Morgan, the 17-year-old who vanished in 2000. That morning, the air outside the courthouse was thick with tension. Local and national media swarmed Minot, creating a spectacle unseen for decades. Townspeople crowded outside, many holding photos of Kelly with the words "Justice for Kelly." Inside the courtroom, cold fluorescent lights heightened the strain. The Morgan family sat in the front row, Kelly's mother clutching her eldest son's hand, eyes red but resolute. After 20 years, she was there to witness justice speak. Schultz entered, wearing a pale shirt, hands cuffed, his face a mix of defiance and panic. He avoided the Morgans' gaze but couldn't escape the dozens of eyes boring into him. The prosecutor opened with a clear summary, outlining the case from the night Kelly left her shift at Paradise Diner, her silver Civic vanishing, to the discovery of her backpack with unknown DNA. He emphasized, "We once lacked the technology to uncover the truth. But modern science doesn't let truth stay hidden forever. DNA doesn't lie." And it points directly to Raymond Schultz. Evidence was presented systematically. First, the DNA from Kelly's backpack. A 99.9999% match to samples covertly collected from Schultz's beer can and cigarette. Next, the receipt for the Ford F-150 taillight repair weeks after Kelly's disappearance. Then, the witness testimony of a young girl and a silver Civic stopped by a blue Ford at the critical time. Finally, the recorded confession from Schultz's second interrogation. He abducted Kelly, held her in a hunting cabin, killed her, and buried her body near Lake Sakakowia's forest edge. Each piece of evidence displayed on the large screen hushed the courtroom. When images of Kelly's bones and the tattered Paradise Diner uniform appeared, many eyes welled with tears. A reporter described, "The room seemed to hold its breath." This was no longer a cold case file. It was a real life, buried for 20 years. Schultz's defense attorney, a silver-haired veteran, stood to counter. He acknowledged the DNA's weight, but argued, "No direct witness saw my client cause Kelly's death." The confession, given under intense psychological pressure, could have been coerced. It doesn't equate to truth. He insisted Schultz was overwhelmed, possibly led to lie out of fear. The prosecutor fired back, pointing to the wealth of physical evidence, backpack DNA, phone data, placing Schultz at the scene, the repair receipt, the witness's blue Ford account. This isn't coincidence. It's a complete picture, with Raymond Schultz as the only piece that fits every detail, he said, voice steely. The Morgan family sat quietly, their faces betraying inner turmoil. Kelly's mother turned away from the excavation photos, unable to look. Her father, face gaunt, nodded at the prosecutor's words, as if affirming to himself that the truth was finally exposed. Over days of trial, the jury reviewed the confession recording, pausing at Schultz's hesitations and sobs. They studied the hunting cabin scene map, photos of the burial site, and heard forensic testimony about the rope embedded in Kelly's wrist bones. Each detail chipped away at Schultz's flimsy defense. The defense tried a different angle, claiming Schultz held Kelly briefly, then released her, with no one witnessing the killing. But this crumbled when the prosecutor showed the rope marks cutting into her bones, proving Kelly was held until her end. If she was released, how did her body end up under thick cement by the lake? The prosecutor asked coldly. Schultz sat motionless, face ashen. On the trial's final day, the courtroom was packed. The prosecutor closed with a call. Kelly Morgan deserved a full life. College, family, dreams. But Raymond Schultz stole it all. After 20 years, it's time for justice. The defense responded briefly, reiterating no direct evidence and urging caution. But his voice seemed lost in a room already heavy with outrage. The Morgans held hands tightly as the judge handed the case to the jury. The deliberation room door closed, leaving the courtroom in breathless anticipation. Outside, dozens gathered, tense. Live broadcasts flashed. Jury prepares to deliver verdict in Kelly Morgan case. The deliberation room door opened, and the jury filed in. Everyone stood, hearts pounding. The judge banged the gavel, demanding order. The jury foreperson handed a sealed envelope to the clerk. Silence stretched, then the clerk read aloud. We, the jury, after reviewing all evidence and testimony, find the defendant Raymond Schultz guilty of kidnapping and first-degree murder of Kelly Morgan. Sobs erupted from the family's row. Kelly's mother collapsed onto her son's shoulder, trembling with pain and relief. Her father, eyes red, gripped his hands, whispering, "It's finally time." Schultz sat frozen, face pale, hands shaking. No more defiance or denial, just an empty shell, realizing his free life was over. The judge pronounced, "Raymond Schultz, you are sentenced to life imprisonment without parole, the maximum penalty allowed, reflecting the especially heinous and cruel nature of your crime." The gavel's echo closed the trial that had gripped Minot for months. News spread instantly. That evening, broadcasts led with, "Justice for Kelly, Schultz, sentenced to life without parole." For Minot, the shock outstripped the verdict. They were stunned that the quiet neighbor, the trusted utility engineer, hid a monstrous crime for 20 years. At a downtown cafe, whispers circulated, "I drank with him, unbelievable." A woman cried, "My kids played near his house." It's chilling to think what could have happened. Online, posts flooded in. The community that kept Kelly's memory alive wrote, "Cold cases may sleep, but justice never forgets." The hashtag #JusticeForKelly trended in North Dakota. People brought flowers, candles, and Kelly's photos to the Paradise Diner's entrance, where she worked her last shift. The candles burned for nights, a cleansing ritual for a town long shadowed. The Morgans could finally bring Kelly home. A dignified funeral was held at the local cemetery, attended by hundreds. Kelly's small white coffin, holding her remains, was covered in white daisies. Her parents held hands, following the casket with dry eyes. They'd cried too much over 20 years. Her father, choking up during the eulogy, said, "Our daughter is finally back. No one can reclaim lost time, but at least she has a resting place." The case reverberated beyond Minot, across America. National TV analyzed it as proof of genealogical DNA's power, reviving cold cases thought buried. A prosecutor stated, "Today's verdict sends a clear message: no matter how many years pass, justice will find you. A perpetrator can hide from the community, but not from science." In Minot schools, teachers used Kelly's story to teach vigilance and community unity. Local police expanded cold case training, hoping to solve other disappearances. To them, Kelly wasn't just a victim, she symbolized how persistence and science could heal wounds thought permanent. On the trial's final night, Kelly's mother lit a candle on her porch. The small flame flickered, reflecting in eyes that had borne too much pain, but now held a glint of peace. She told a reporter, "We'll never forget Kelly, but we can sleep better knowing our daughter is no longer abandoned out there." Justice came, late but deserved. The Kelly Morgan case is more than a closed criminal file after 2 decades. It reflects profound values for American society today. First, it underscores the importance of technology and persistence in justice. Without genealogical DNA breakthroughs, the hair and faint traces on Kelly's backpack would have remained useless. Othram's ability to recover genetic data and cross-reference via GED match proved science can restore hope for families who've lost everything. It's a reminder, in an ever-changing society, support research and invest in technology. It can deliver justice for the forgotten. Second, the case highlights community strength. Without the witness who, after reading a Reddit thread, recalled the Civic stopped by a blue Ford, the pieces might never have connected. This reflects American civic culture. When individuals speak up, truth can emerge. Finally, Kelly's story reminds us of vigilance in daily life. Schultz was seen as a kind neighbor in Minot, yet hid a crime for 20 years. In a society valuing community like America's, we must remember appearances don't always reveal truth, and the safety of children and teens must come first. The lesson: cold cases may lie dormant in files, but justice never forgets, and it's the community's duty to ensure no other Kelly vanishes in silence. Thank you for following the journey to justice for Kelly Morgan after 2 decades in darkness. If you found this story meaningful, please hit subscribe to support the channel. See you in the next video, where we'll explore more cases thought forgotten, but ultimately brought to light.